right, so I'm Kendra Baumer. I'm the Senior Engagement Manager with the Trail Conference. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. And I do have two co-presenters who I want to introduce. So first off is Olivia. Olivia, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Olivia Sohn, and I'm the Volunteer Engagement Assistant with the Trail Conference.
Awesome. And then also here today to help us out with our presentation is Keith. So Keith, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Keith. I am the Wawa on the East Coast Supervisor, and I'm also New Jersey representative to the Trails Policy Council, and I've been a maintainer with the Trail Conference since 2003.
Awesome. Thank you, Keith. All right, so jumping into it, a couple of just, housekeeping items. Oops, did I skip? So for today, we are going to ask folks to participate in a few different ways. So number one is there is a chat box, and if you're using a computer screen, if you hover your mouse over the bottom of your screen, you'll see like a toolbox that kind of pops up in Zoom. I believe I've heard on like the iPad and the phone, it's somewhere on the side or something, so just play around. But if you click that chat box, that's where folks can type in questions and thoughts along the way, and then we will have moments where we ask you to actually answer some questions via the chat box. The other thing is that the way we're going to do question and answer is we will have dedicated time at the end of like each major section to do a Q&A time. And so to do Q&A, we're going to ask folks to raise their hand, and you do that by clicking the participants button in your toolbox, and then there will be an options, and you will select raise hand. And then what we'll do is we will call on folks and unmute you to ask your question, and then we'll go ahead and answer it. So just know that there are dedicated Q&A times. All right, the last thing is that polling will be an option, which you just experienced. So hopefully there aren't any issues with that moving forward. Okay, so for attendance, by joining us today, you're dedicating some time to us to learn what it means to be a volunteer trail maintainer. So for us to just track who's here and actually track those hours, if you could type your full name in the chat box right now, that would be fantastic. Just go ahead and take a second to do that. Great. Okay, so while everybody's continuing to go ahead and type their name in, we will go ahead and get started. So for today, we're just going to do a quick introduction of the Trail Conference. I'm sure most of you are familiar with us, but I want to make sure everybody is. We will talk about what it means to be prepared to go out on the trail and be a trail maintainer. And then we'll actually talk about what does it mean to be a trail maintainer? What are those responsibilities you would have if you take up this volunteer position? So just so you know, everything we talk about today, we have a lot of fantastic resources that will support you. So number one, you'll be getting a recording of this webinar so you can reference it at any point. We will send a follow-up email that also gives a link to our online learning library, where we have a lot of other types of recordings and training sessions you can check out. We do have a trail maintenance manual. Currently, we have an older edition out right now, but Keith is actually on a team that's been working really hard to update it, and soon we'll be releasing a new version of it, but that's available online right now as well to support you. So have no fear. After this, you're not on your own. There's lots of different resources for you. All right, so quick intro to the Trail Conference. We are a 100-year-old organization. We were born in 1920, which is incredible. And we were born as a 100% volunteer-run organization. And the volunteers came together to really build and maintain trails out in the woods of New York and New Jersey. And fast forward 100 years, and we are still a volunteer-powered organization with, we actually just did a recent check on how many active volunteers we have, and it's over 2,500 active volunteers, which is just incredible. And every year, donate about 103,000 plus hours. So we really depend on our volunteers to, you know, accomplish our mission, and that is why we say we're volunteer powered. And then we also have about 26 staff members to support the mission. So where do we work? We work in a large area. Our headquarters, which is this beautiful building that I get to call my office, is located in Mahwah, New Jersey, which is in North Jersey. You can actually see on this map here. And then the trails and lands that we oversee are in parts of central New Jersey, North New Jersey, and then all of Manhattan. For those who don't know, there's 100 miles of hiking trails in Manhattan. And then we go up into the Hudson Valley, and our northernmost area that we oversee is the Catskill Mountains. So lots of places to become a maintainer, lots of places to have adventures. Okay, so when you become a trail maintainer, you become a part of a larger family and team. And we have this structure that's called the Regional Trails Council. So if you look here on the bottom left-hand corner is where you're going to see trail maintainer. So a trail maintainer is somebody who adopts a 1 to 2 mile section on average. The length can vary, but on average 1 to 2 mile section of trail that you go out and you oversee and ensure that it stays clear and safe for the general public. A maintainer reports up to what is called a trail supervisor, which is what Keith is. So a trail supervisor you can think of as somebody who oversees like an entire park and all of the maintainers within that park. And the supervisor is there to support you and be a mentor and answer those questions that you have. Now, your supervisor is not on their own. They actually report up to our other level, which is called our local trail committee chair. So if a supervisor is overseeing a team of maintainers, our local trail committee chair is overseeing an even bigger region and is overseeing multiple supervisors and multiple parks in a certain region. We also have lots of other different volunteer positions, as you can see here. And if you're interested in them, we actually have some of the trainings on those positions on our online library. So we encourage you to check it out. Okay, so just a very quick overview because we're going to dive into each of these more in depth throughout this presentation. So as a maintainer, what are the key things that you're going to be doing? You know, as a maintainer, you are a part of our largest cadre of volunteers. So we have over 900 trail maintainers who we depend on to really maintain those over 2,000 miles of trails that we oversee. So as a maintainer, you're going to go out and inspect your trail. You're going to report on what you're seeing to your supervisor twice a year minimum. And then you're going to clear any obstructions on the trail, any litter, just make sure it's in good condition and it's passable. You're going to actually blaze the trail in most parks. And that blazing, for those who don't know, are the colored plaques or painted colored squares on a tree that help people navigate through the forest so they don't get lost. And then just in general, as a maintainer, we ask you to be a good advocate of the trails and help educate people when they stop and talk to you on the trail. Oh, got a little excited. All right. So like we said, you're not on your own. So in addition to your supervisor, who is really going to be your key contact, you want that strong relationship with your supervisor. The reality is you're going to come across things on your trail that are going to be beyond what you're responsible for. So if you have an incredibly large down tree on your trail, we don't expect you to pull out a handsaw and, you know, get to work on something that's, you know, 2 feet wide. That's where you're going to call in our professionally trained volunteer chain sawyers. Or if your trail needs something built on it, like some sort of structure, or it needs to be rerouted, there's just a really big construction project, that's when you're going to, again, tell your supervisor about that, and they're going to help call in a trail crew to do that work. And our trail crews do our construction and rehabilitation work, and you can join a trail crew at any time that you want. They're a lot of fun. I highly recommend getting out with them. We have trail crews in all of our regions, and those are like one-off. If you want to just get a one-off experience with the trail crew to do construction, you can do So with that, Keith, do you have anything else to add on that?
Not that much. I think that pretty much covers a lot of it.
Great. Thanks. Okay, so the first thing, when you're headed out on the trail, it's important to be prepared, right? Just as when you go hiking or camping, you need to be prepared. So you want to check off all those quick essentials like water, food, map, extra clothes, first aid. But then what's key for you being a maintainer is you're going to want to bring certain tools, which we will get into the tools later on in this presentation of what you should bring for what responsibilities. And then gloves. Definitely want to bring gloves because when you are cutting back like prickly barberry or something, you're going to want to protect those hands. You will also want to bring your protective eyewear. Protective eyewear can be either prescription glasses that you have, sunglasses, or just plastic glasses that you buy from a home good, from like a Home Depot or Lowe's or something. Okay, so just a quick vocab check here. We did talk about, so trail blaze. So those are the markers on the tree that help navigate people through the forest. And they can be either painted on or they can be a metal tag or plastic tag that is nailed into the tree. Our trail corridor. So your corridor is the area that you want to keep passable on the trail. So your corridor, generally speaking, it can change per trail, but a general rule of thumb is 8 feet high and 4 feet wide. And that is going to be the corridor that you want to keep clear of branches and brush and anything else, because that is generally a comfortable, you know, just distance for people to pass through with their backpacks on and things like that. A trail structure is anything that is built on the trail. So here you have your stone steps that are built in. It could be a bridge that's built, anything that is constructed and is not the natural tread, which is our next thing, the tread, which is the actual earthen ground that you're walking on. That's just a quick vocab lesson. All right, so something to be aware of is there are some special situations on the trail. We call this co-alignment when 2 or more trails end up coming together and overlapping for a while. So this particularly happens when we have like a long distance trail like the Highlands Trail, which is what this trail marker is indicating, or the Appalachian Trail, right? Everybody knows the Appalachian Trail, and a local trail will come, merge with it for a while, they'll continue together and then eventually split again. So it's just important to know that if you have a segment that has a co-aligned portion, there's going to be another maintainer who's assigned to the opposite trail who will also be maintaining that co-aligned section. So it's just important to work with your supervisor to help you know who that other person may be and just get a situation worked out between the 2 of you. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pop open that chat box again. So if you can, when you're going out into the woods and you're thinking about safety and maybe some hazards that might be out there, what comes to mind? What would you think you need to watch out for and be prepared to maybe like handle and whatnot? So one thing would be snakes. There we go. All right, snakes, absolutely. Poison ivy we got, bears, ticks, lightning, yes, weather, absolutely weather. Lack of water, definitely be aware of your water. All right, these are all great. Hunters, yes, if it's hunting season, ensure that you are in proper clothing. High dead branches, yes. Massive branches that can fall off a tree, they're called widowmakers. You do not want to be underneath one when it falls. Injury, ATVs, absolutely. Steep climbs. These are all fantastic answers. So just a couple things to watch out for crazy people. Yeah, sometimes I think I carry my bear spray more for the people than the bears, to be honest. All right, so ticks, right? We're all aware living in this part of the country that anytime you go home, ensure that you are doing a full tick check, always. Even when you're exhausted, it's not worth forgetting to do. Stinging insects, just be careful. We did say snakes. Generally, a snake is more afraid of you than you are of it, as long as you give it its space. You know, I did come across a woman on the trail who was trying to pet a snake. Do not do that, just leave it be. And poison ivy, both of these photos are poison ivy, so the long hairy rope and the leaves of 3, so just make sure you're cautious of that. Okay, so inspection. When we're going out, this is one of the key responsibilities of a maintainer. Again, we ask that you go out and patrol your trail a minimum of twice a year. Minimum, really, ideally 3 or 4 times is best practice. So when you're going out, you want to take just a fresh objective look every time you go out on your trail, right? You want to use those powers of observation to check out what's going on my trail. Are there any issues that I'm coming across? And the good times to go out on the trail are, in particular, spring. So spring's going to show you a lot of the time is when you're going to see your water issues, right? The wettest time of year is the spring. It has been so rainy this month, I feel like, or maybe I just feel like it's rainier than usual because I feel cooped up or something. But right, like the trails are probably experiencing some water issues right now. So this is where you're going to be able to see, are there any drainage problems on my trail that need to be fixed? Are there any areas where water is pooling? Maybe the trail needs a reroute. And also in spring is when your fresh brush is coming out. So this is a great time to get that first clipping in. You also want to go back out in late summer. So what you clipped in the spring, it grows back, right? It doesn't just stay where it was at. So it's a good time to get out in midsummer, late summer, to go ahead and clip back and make sure that corridor is staying open again. Another fantastic time to go out is when the leaves have all fallen. Think of it as nature's alarm clock to get out there before winter hits. You know, what might feel like a very easy to follow trail in the middle of summer when you can see the tread, you might find that it's a different story once all the leaves have fallen on the ground and you can't just easily see the tread. That's when you're really going to notice, do I have enough blazes up and are my blazes in the right place for people to still follow the trail easily even when it's covered in leaves? And then another important time to get out is after severe storms, fires, any type of heavy use. And this is crucial because after a big storm is when you're really going to see any damage to the trail, or in particular downed trees. And if there are large downed trees, we want to know about that sooner than later, right? Because we want to get our sawyers out to make sure that, again, that trail is passable and safe for all of the public. And then just a couple other things to keep in mind is that if you have a structure on your trail that like a shelter or something that's going to just encourage higher use and probably a little bit more litter, you may want to get out there a bit more frequently, right? And remember that garbage bag to make sure you can pack out the litter. And then if you're in a meadow, or if you have a segment that's up on a ridge that gets a lot of sun, you're going to see just a lot more growth than a segment that's underneath a tree canopy getting less sunlight. So you're going to probably have more clipping to do on your segment if that's where yours is. Keith, do you have anything to add to that?
One thing about getting out in the spring is the blowdowns from the winter, heavy snow, winds, and storms. You know, get out early to report those so you can get an early start on taking care of them. And the water, you do see a lot of snow melt off this year, not so much. But it gives you just that different look at your trail. And one of the things is, if you have a segment, one of the best things to do is try to walk it in different directions. each time you go out, just to get a different look at it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so speaking of shelters and structures, we're going to go ahead and just watch a short video from our friends. This is another organization that maintains and cares for trails out in the Midwest, and they're partners of ours, and they give us permission to use this video. So we're going to go ahead and hit play here.
Trail structures are an integral part of the trail. They include things like bridges, puncheon, boardwalk, fence stiles, gates, lean-tos, or campsites. As a trail adopter, what you need to be aware of is to keep a close watch on all of the structures. Each year you should look at them to make sure that they're clean and free of debris, and then get down and look underneath. Maybe stick a beam of a bridge with a pocket knife or an ice pick if you happen to have something like that along, or a screwdriver, and make sure that it's not beginning to rot, that the footings are square and firm and not slumping into the edge of the creek. Whenever you find something that is truly wrong with a structure, again, if it's something that is beyond your capability to handle, be sure to report these situations to a chapter officer or leader. In addition to trail structures, there are other things out there that I basically call support facilities or support structures. These are things like campsites, trailheads, register boxes, kiosks, and those sorts of things that are sort of for the convenience or the informative nature of the trail user, rather than to serve as an integral part of the trail itself. Whenever your section of trail has any of these facilities along it, whether it's a campsite or a vista, you need to keep a close watch on those. Keep a close eye on a vista. You know, they were created because they provide this grand view out into a expansive landscape. But if brush starts to grow into them, they're no longer a grand view. So you need to think about those sorts of things and prune out the brush occasionally. If you have a register box along your section of trail, you need to check to make sure that it's in good condition. Make sure that there isn't water leaking into it. Make sure that the register book itself isn't getting too full. Make sure that the register box has a good supply of pens and pencils that are in working condition. And also that the book itself is within a heavy-duty freezer bag to protect it even further than the box itself. If you have a trailhead along your section of trail, it may have a kiosk or other bulletin board type of structure there. Make sure that it has the proper maps and supplies that are supposed to be there, and make sure that the interpretive panel itself is in good condition and not too faded out. At your trailhead kiosk, take a look at the panel that is there. If it's becoming severely faded from the sun, or if it's damaged from some act of vandalism, be sure to report this to your chapter leadership so that they can obtain a replacement in a timely manner.
Okay, great. So we're just going to do a quick check here. Let's say, you know, you go out on your trail, you're patrolling, you know, you're checking things out, and you come across this situation, this top photo. Go ahead and use the chat box and say what you think the problem is here. Thank you, Rob, for letting me know. I'm sorry the video playback's a little dragged. Moist tread. So we're looking at the top photo here. Bridge washout, water, crossing. Yeah, so no bridge, exactly. So if this is the crossing, you know, maybe in fall, if the stream is just a trickle, it's easy to cross, but, you know, come spring and, you know, a rushing storm or something, this is definitely missing a structure. This is missing a bridge. So if or maybe it got washed out, we don't totally know. So if this is something you come across, this is when you're going to go back to your supervisor and say, hey, this is an issue, you know, can we get a trail crew out here? And they'll hopefully work to get a crew out to get a structure built and get a bridge built. And this would also be something that you then note in your report. All right, great. And then just a couple other things to watch out for. This is like a damaged structure, so this is what we call punch-in. And this is a very, very wet trail that's almost become a stream, so you need to, you know, consider maybe it needs a reroute. Maybe the trail needs a reroute or something else to be done. Okay, safety hazards as well. Just make sure you're watching out for anything that may be an issue. And if you do see a safety hazard, that's not something to wait for your biannual report. Tell your supervisor immediately so that they can get the park involved to handle it however is appropriate. So with that, Keith, do you have anything else to add?
One of the things I thought of before about blowdowns and sawyers and reporting them is encouraging the maintainer to go out with the sawyer to assist. You know, chainsaw bars are heavy, fuel is heavy, and you'll get to learn what they do, and they could always use a hand. As for that leaner, there's in this picture here, there's really nothing that even our trained sawyers would do about that, which is difficult. Sometimes you may want to route the trail around it so you don't walk under it if you can. The best way to document all of your problems, though, is going to be with a geolocated picture, either with an appropriate waypoint on our Avenza app or just a picture that has coordinates that could be plotted on that app.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we'll get into making sure that you're fully documenting things too in our reporting section. So we'll dive into that a little bit more and what Avenza is as well. So great points. And yes, I encourage everybody to get out with a chain sawyer if they can. It is an experience and a half. It is hard work, and you really appreciate what they do. So just a quick, you know, overview here is every time you go out on patrol, remember again to take that fresh, objective look. You know, as Keith had mentioned, be sure you are walking your trail in both directions. So you don't want to just go one way and then loop somewhere else. Go and come back, because each way you're coming, you're going to get a different look at your trail and a different view of what the issues may be. And bring a friend if you can, right? Like another set of eyes that can help point things out. Although I know some folks like to just be by themselves in the woods, which I can also appreciate. All right, so at this time we're going to take some Q&A. So remember, use that participant button and then raise your hand. And those who raise their hand, will go ahead and unmute you and call on you to ask a question. So are there any questions right now? No, we'll give it 30 more seconds. All right, doesn't look like it. Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and move on. Oh wait, hold on, backing up. We got one question. All right, you are unmuted, go ahead.
I want to ask you that if somebody is gonna come with us first time to show the trail.
Will somebody come with you the first time to show you the trail?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So your supervisor, your trail supervisor, should go out and walk the trail with you your first time. And that way they'll be able to point out everything you should be watching out for, and just make sure that you know exactly where your section, you know, starts and ends. So yes, they should go out and walk with you. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Robert, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Will you be covering, I assume you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Will you be covering how the needs are assessed in terms of identifying candidates to become trail maintainers? And will you be addressing kind of what it looks like each season, you know, the level of needs, how they're deployed, what the geographic locations are, and how you can become identified as a volunteer?
Oh, sure. So at the end of this presentation, we, we'll have a little prompt on how to become a volunteer, but we'll be sending out a follow-up email. And if you just reply to that email, which is our volunteer at email address, and let us know that you're interested in being a maintainer, we work with you one-on-one on where you would be interested in being placed. So we have openings in, across all those regions that we showed you, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, Catskills. And then once you have adopted a section, that is your section until you give it up. So that means that like you are just responsible, for every year going out and checking your trail. So we encourage you to go out at those specific times, but it's not like every year we assign different, sections and deploy people at once. It's just once you adopt it, you're expected to take care of it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was just trying to get a handle on what the needs are. And it sounds like there's always needs.
There are always needs.
Okay.
Needs.
That's good. That's good news.
Yes. So obviously there are parks that are more popular than others that can fill up a lot faster, but there are always openings that we need help on. So yes, thank you. Okay. And then just in the chat box, I see David asks, who do you call for emergencies, say like an injured hiker, phone numbers. So that's going to depend on per park, and that would be once you get your assignment, your supervisor should help share what park emergency numbers are. And then if you do become a maintainer, if you are injured, which we'll get into a little bit later, we have insurance and we have a protocol. So I will get into insurance a little bit later. Okay, so clearing, inspection is a really big part of the job. So is clearing. Like we said, our maintainers are who we depend on to keep those 2,000 plus miles of trails passable for the public. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna show a quick video from our friends at the North Country Trail Association again on clearing and pruning, and then we will talk specifics to the trail conference. And hopefully the video keeps up. I apologize if it's a little laggy.
One of the trail adopter's responsibilities is to keep the trail clear of brush and limbs that would brush against the hiker, and also free of fallen logs. And you would be surprised how quickly these things grow in, or how quickly limbs fall down onto the trail. Typically, we keep the trail cleared 4 feet wide and 8 feet high. And that's the corridor that you should imagine when you're looking at your trail and trying to keep it cleared. Whenever you're clipping limbs along the trail, remember not to cut them off and create a stub, but you should cut them off back flush with the trunk, or at least back to a lateral branch so that it looks more finished and not like an obstruction. The same is true when you're cutting down brush. You should cut it off flush with the ground, not leave a stump sticking up a foot into the air.
Okay, sorry for the abrupt ending. That's always a little awkward. Okay, so when you're going out to do this clearing, equipment list. We already talked about your gloves and your PPE, so your protective eyewear. You're also going to want to bring, obviously, your pack and your water. If you have one of those sections on a meadow that we talked about, a weed whip may be very helpful for you. And then these larger type shears are what we call loppers. So those are going to be able to take care of those larger branches that you may come across, and maybe a root if you need to get to it. These are our hand clippers, which are a great tool, easy to go in the backpack. We have, this is the hand saw that most people will carry to manage any small blowdowns like under 6 inches on your trail. But then some folks prefer a bow saw to bring out on the trail. So you'll figure out which tools are best for you and what you like. As for just a quick note too, electric tools. We get this question all the time. Can you use an electric tool? The answer is it depends on your park. So you have to work with your supervisor. Some parks do not allow electric tools to be used at all. Others are perfectly fine with it. So again, this is going to be something you ask your supervisor on. All right, so just a quick reminder, again, it's that corridor that we want to keep clear. Again, you're going to hear this over and over, but ask your supervisor what the correct corridor is for you. The average is an 8-foot high, 4-foot wide corridor. However, some are thinner, some are wider. Okay, so when it comes to actually clipping back, you know, branches and trunks, how do you want to go about doing that? Well, when you're clipping, you want to not clip in the middle of the branch, right? Just because you're like, oh, okay, if I clip the branch right in the middle, that means I'll have my 4-foot wide corridor. Well, you never want to clip a tree in the middle of a branch. Why? For a number of reasons. One, you're going to leave out a pointy, pokey edge that might get somebody in the eye. It is just a danger. That's not what we want to do. The other thing is that it is not healthy for the tree. So what you're going to want to do is follow that branch back to its first major knot or major intersection, if you will, and clip there, because if you leave half a branch there, the tree still thinks that it needs to send out food and energy to it to keep it alive when it really doesn't. So clip it all the way back so the tree knows, you know what, I should send my food and my energy other places, and it can be a healthier tree. Trunks, you never want to leave something just tall in the middle of the trail. It's a tripping hazard, or even, you know, on the side of the trail. So you really want to take a trunk, a tree trunk, all the way down to as close as the ground as you can. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and actually get into really reviewing how to cut branches, because obviously this is usually a class that is done hands-on, and this is an important part of the class, but we're going to get a little creative on how to go over this digitally. So again, like we said, you don't want to clip in the middle. You want to come back to that major knot, and we're going to do a bit of practice. Okay, so let's say you have your corridor here, right? And you have this branch sticking out. You're gonna say, okay, you're not just gonna cut here, right? You wanna come back and find again, where's there another major branch? So we assume by cutting here, whoops, this looks to be like another major branch that we're still going to want the tree to keep alive. So we're gonna cut right there. All right, another example. Let's say our corridor's moved over a little bit. So we have this portion of the branch in, we have this portion in, and this portion in. Okay, so here again, we don't just want to cut at where the corridor should be. We're going to want to follow this back to the first major knot. And this is probably just like a tiny twig. It's not a major branch. This is a tiny twig, so it doesn't make sense to cut it there at that intersection. You're going to come all the way back to this major one. Same here, and then same here, because originally we had cut here, but now that this major branch is in the corridor, it has to come off, so we're going to come all the way back to the next major knot. All right, so now it's your turn. You're going to do a little practice with this. I'm going to launch a poll here. Okay. All right, does everybody see the poll? And if you do, go ahead and select which intersections should you cut the tree at if this is where your corridor is. All right, we'll give about another like 15 seconds here. Okay, gonna go ahead and end the poll, share the results. All right, so majority of you said C and E, and you would be correct. So we can see here that if you follow all of the branches back, you're going to come back, end up at C and E. So if we go back and look, the reason it would not be C and D, like some folks answered, is D is the incorrect portion. If you were to cut it off here, you're actually just cutting in the middle of the branch, right? Because here, you have to take this branch off, it's in the corridor. You have to take this branch off, it's in the corridor. So if you cut here, you're not saving anything. It's actually in the middle of the branch. Same thing, so A and B, we want to come back all the way to C because this, if you look, is actually in the corridor. So again, you would just be, if you're cutting here, it's really in the middle of the branch because you have to get both of these off. It doesn't make sense. All right, we're going to do one more practice round. And all right, go ahead and answer, where should you cut the tree this time? All right, we're going to leave it up for just like another 10 seconds. Okay, and polling, share results. All right, so most folks said A and C. The correct answer, though, is D. So those of you who answered D, that is correct. The reason being A, cutting here at A assumes that you'd be leaving this, but if you come back up to here, this branch is actually in the corridor and has to be removed. So if this branch has to be removed and this branch has to be removed, then there's no point in leaving this hanging out. Same thing now, because we had to remove this, it doesn't make sense to cut at C anymore because this just becomes, you know, it's like a dagger sticking out and there's really no major branches for the tree there. So you have to cut all the way back to D. Okay. All right, I'm going to pass it off there. Before I do though, Keith, was there anything else you had to add on that section about clipping?
No, you just want to be careful that you're not going to leave a coat hook that lets somebody get hooked up on it, or, you know, a tripping hazard generally on the ground. You want to try to get it, you know, close to the ground as possible and make the trail as safe as possible.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, and I'm going to hand it off to Olivia.
All right, so we've already talked about blowdowns a little bit. Blowdowns are the large trees or branches that have fallen down onto your trail. So we do ask maintainers to remove blowdowns that are up to 6 inches in diameter. Anything greater than this will just be unsafe for you to tackle with your handsaw. But that said, cutting blowdowns takes some practice and experience, and it can sometimes be dangerous. So we just ask you to use your judgment, and if you don't have the experience or you feel uncomfortable cutting something, you can just take a picture, note the location, and reach out to your supervisor. We sometimes leave blowdowns in place strategically to deter illegal use by mountain bikes or off-road vehicles, and sometimes to redirect water off of the trail. So always consult with your supervisor to determine what course of action is appropriate. And if you do leave a blowdown in place, always trim the branches to make foot passage easy and safe. So here we have a photo of a maintainer tackling a blowdown. So can anyone tell me in the chat box, based on what we've discussed so far, what is wrong with this photo? Safety glasses, no eye protection. Any other suggestions? No eye protector. All right, well, you got it. He's not wearing safety equipment. He's not wearing his safety glasses. And you always want to be sure to wear safety glasses when you're cutting. And like we said, this could just be sunglasses, your eyeglasses, or you can purchase safety glasses from Home Depot or Lowe's.
Yeah, and just to answer what other folks are saying, so he's actually, his stance is okay. He does have an exit area right behind him. You know, the branch is down, so, and he's pushing on this to actually release some tension for his saw so his saw doesn't get cut. So pressing down is okay here. He's actually doing everything okay except for the eye pro. But those are other great points to always think about when you are doing sawing, making sure you do have a path to exit at all times and making sure you have a strong stance.
So you may also encounter litter on your trail, and the best time to do a thorough litter cleanup is in late summer. This is towards the end of the peak season, so hopefully you can capture the majority of garbage from the summer. And it's also before the fall when leaves will fall and obscure the trash. So late summer is definitely the best time. We ask that you don't leave litter at the trailhead, but rather place it where trash pickup will happen. And you could talk to your supervisor to see if that happens in your park somewhere, or we ask that you bring it home with you for neighborhood pickup if you can. And if you have an amount of litter that you can't handle on your own, you can also consult your supervisor to set up a cleanup day to get other people involved to help you. So just to summarize this section on clearing, if you're working alone on your trail, you'll find that it's difficult to tackle blowdowns and to blaze your trail and to pick up litter all in one trip. So just know that each trip you might be going out to perform a different activity. So you'll just prepare accordingly. And over time, you will find a system that works best for you.
Great, so we're about to head into Q&A, but before we do, Keith, do you have anything to add on this section?
Litter can really break your spirits if you have a problem with it. And I've had to deal with a very large litter problem around Terrace Pond. I lost a couple maintainers who just felt overwhelmed by litter. They never got to anything else because they could not stop picking up all the litter. So as much as it hurts, sometimes you have to walk past the litter and take care of the trail and then go back and get the litter. And what we did around Terrace Pond was we had gotten a Facebook group to donate some of their time, and the park worked with them to allow them to park easier and just pile the trash where they parked and then picked it up later. So there's always a way to deal with it, and you don't want it to let it burden you down if your section of trail happens to have a lot.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. All right, so at this point, go ahead and raise those hands if you have a question, and we will call on you. All right, Rob Bond, you are, I'm trying to unmute you. Hold on here. Okay, you were unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, this might be in your maintainer guide, which I haven't seen, but how do you handle poison ivy in terms of safely when it's encroaching on the trail corridor?
That's a great question. So that's where your work gloves are always going to come in handy, and a trash bag. But we recommend, you know, be careful first of all. So if you do not have the right gear, do not tackle it at all. If it really is encroaching on your area, you know, use your clippers or your whatever is the appropriate tool and place it right in a garbage bag. And remember that you're going to have the oils all over your gloves and whatnot at that point. So you're going to want to place your gloves when you take them off, put them in a plastic bag. Don't just put them loose into your backpack. And if you know you're going to have to tackle poison ivy, I do recommend that you bring Technu out with you, which is it's a cream that you can, or a wipe that you can help wipe the oils off immediately if you do get it on your hands. I don't know.
So you're suggesting physical removal versus applying something that will kill the poison ivy?
Yeah, you cannot, applying like an herbicide or something, you can only do that in parks if you are a licensed person. And we do have a team who is licensed, but they're focused on invasive species. So, you know, let your supervisor know if it's a major issue, and maybe we can get our team out there. But no, you cannot actually apply like an herbicide unless you're a specially licensed person to do so.
So there are ways of killing poison ivy that do not require you to use an herbicide, right? There are home sort of made remedies that are really not so toxic. Are you including those as well?
It's not something I would recommend. I'm not really familiar with what you would be using. I generally wouldn't recommend that, but I don't know if Keith, have you ever had to deal with poison ivy on your trails before?
I did. I had a really bad section, like to the point where it was blocking the entire trail. We moved the trail.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that a mix of salt water doesn't kill poison ivy. But, you know, it's just salt. But yeah, I came across that whole, like, you're not allowed to spray anything. I tried working with the park. They did one time go out and apply stuff. That allowed us to actually get through that section for a while. And the reroute didn't come along until the fire service actually rebuilt the fire road and allowed us to go back to the fire road where we were before we got to where we were with the poison ivy with the reroute around where the fire road was. So, you know, there's different ways to do it, but I wouldn't recommend. My dad can touch it and he could pull it out all day long and go about his business and like nothing's going on. So if you have someone like that you may want to find them, but other than that, that's about it.
Just a quick related question. The term park has been used a number of times. At least in my area, your trails are on private lands sometimes. So
where's that?
Lake Opakong.
Okay.
So that would be like a land manager. So land manager, park, whoever owns the land is partner.
All right. So whatever rules they would have would apply then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and some little parks, you know, they may just say, you know, here's 10 gallons of Roundup. Have at it, you know. And in that case, you know, you'd have to obey all of the safety regulations on the Roundup. If you wanted to apply it, you know, that's up to you if the land manager wants you to do it, you know. But as a large organization as we are, we have a lot of land managers. So you really got to take it up with them.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, so Robert,
Yes.
Robert P., go ahead.
Okay. I have questions about the role of the trail supervisor. My first question is, how many trails does a trail supervisor have responsibility for, approximately? Maybe by miles or however you think is best to quantify that.
It can really vary. Let's say I don't know, like an average 20.
Yeah, because your answer.
Miles, it could be 30 miles of trail.
30, okay. So that means in 30 miles of trail, that requires a lot of coordination with volunteers, correct?
Yeah, so if you have 30 miles of trails, you can assume that you have, you know, probably an average of like 15 to 30 maintainers. And as the supervisor, yes, you're responsible for supporting your maintainers. And Keith, you're as a supervisor, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, it really depends on the park. So when I first started doing this, the reason that I'm in Way on the East is because there was a time when Way was the only park. It had been determined that the one side of the park, being more rugged on the mountain and having other issues that weren't on the front side of the park with the picnic tables and the beach and everything on the west, we split it. So not only in our park, we have 3 supervisors, 2 for just our side. We share the responsibility, and then there's 1 supervisor for the other side of the park. The other side of the park is mainly carriage roads, bicycle trails, paths, beaches, that kind of stuff, where our side of the park is more backcountry than most places in New Jersey. So we have, it takes a lot of effort for some maintainers in my area just to get to their section of trail. So they may only have 3/4 or a mile of trail, but they have to walk 2.5 miles just to get to it and then get back to their car. So it really depends on the park and the terrain and what each, maintainer and supervisor would have to deal with.
Yep. So if anybody is interested in leadership roles, though, we do also have supervisor openings, so you can consider that as well. So I do want to just be conscious of time here. So I'm going to go ahead and move to our last question, and we're going to then just go ahead and speed along. So Sharon, if you want to go ahead.
It's actually Jim. Can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, the name shows up as Sharon.
I'm using her computer. It's okay. Just when we were looking at the area, the corridor defined area, you could see some branches that most likely would be incurring into that space next year or the next time, by the next time you're visiting. Does it make sense to go outside that corridor definition from time to time to make sure that those branches are not going to be coming in by the time you're there the next time?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Good question. Okay, all right, one more question, but then we really got to move on. So I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Alika? You are
I'm
unmuted.
Madhavi. I'm actually Madhavi. Alika is my son's name.
Oh.
I'm asking that we have to take our equipments for clearing the trail or taking care of the trail. Like
I'm sorry, your clippings, is that what you said?
Yeah, means we have to take our instrument or somebody's gonna give us at the what?
Nope, you have to, you do have to have your own clippers and hand saws. Under certain circumstances, sometimes we get donations of tools that we can hand out to folks who can't afford them. So, it's always worth checking in to see if we happen to have gotten a donation, but for the most part, yes, we do ask folks to go ahead and purchase their own tools and take them out.
So is that okay? I can go with the family trip and I can take care of my kids and my husband also to do clearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring people along. Yeah, absolutely.
So are you gonna give me some badge that I am a volunteer, so nobody's gonna bother me that why you're doing this?
So some bags.
Like something that I'm a volunteer, so.
Like a t-shirt.
Oh, like a badge or something. So we do give. Sorry, go ahead, Keith.
She said patch, like a patch or
a patch. I'm sorry.
To identify her as the maintainer.
Sorry, the sound is like so low on my computer. So we do give out an annual volunteer t-shirt, and it says Trail Conference Volunteer on it. And then we also have a parking permit that if you need to park somewhere, you can put that in your dashboard so that your car is okay. But yeah, so you'll get a t-shirt usually every year.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
Generally, what I like to do too is give some free Trail Conference swag out, like, how to sign up brochures or something to a couple of my maintainers to give out to people on the trail if they get any questions or whatnot.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, we're going to go ahead and speed this along because we're a little behind. So we're going to move into blazing. Okay, so blazing. Like we said, that is the markings on the tree that help navigate the hiker through the forest. And you have painted blazes and you have tag blazes. And depending on the park you are in, you will have a certain standard. As always, check with your supervisor to see what you should be doing, if it should be painted or tagged, and if you should even be blazing. So if you are actually working in the Catskills on DEC land, they do not allow us to blaze at all. So you're going to want to work with what is the standard for your park. Some parks require that you get the blazes, like the tag blazes from them, and others ask you to actually just make your own, like out of, you know, cutting tin and painting it. So. Okay, so just a quick standard for painted blazes. The Trail Conference standard is 2 inches wide by 3 inches high. However, you know, that's not always the case, particularly on long distance trails. There are other standards, so I'm gonna say it again, check with your supervisor on what the standard should be for your painted blaze if you have a painted blaze. Tag blazing, so you know, whether it's plastic or a metal blaze, you'll be nailing it into the tree. And when you do nail it into the tree, we recommend that you leave, really what's best practice is like 1 inch of space between that nail head and the tag and the tree, so that you give the tree room to grow, right? Because if you nail it right into the tree is going to continue to expand and it will literally eat the blaze, which we have a photo of later. Now, just for a quick overview of blazing, we're going to go back to a video from our friends for you to watch.
One of the things that you as a trail adopter are responsible for is the blazing along the trail. For the North Country Trail, we use blue rectangular blazes 2 by 6 inches in size. These blazes are placed intervisibly along the trail, generally about 6 feet high. Whenever you're blazing, you should make sure that prepare a smooth surface for the blaze and then that you paint it crisply and neatly with square corners. There's only one color blaze for the trail, and that is Nelson Boundary Paint Blue. You need to stick with that color paint so that we have what we call a thread of continuity along the entire North Country National Scenic Trail. In other words, the trail should look similar in Michigan as it does in Pennsylvania. Whenever you're walking the trail, you should always keep in your mind the condition of the blazes along it. They only last about 4 years, so you should anticipate that you need to repaint the blazes about that often. If you don't, they grow wide as the tree expands in diameter and they get all fuzzy, or they fade out. There are all kinds of reasons why the blazes disappear after about 4 to 5 years. Without them, hikers who are unfamiliar with the trail feel like they're lost, even though they may not be, but they get that nagging worry in their head that they might have gotten off on the wrong trail. It's important that you carefully select the tree that you're going to blaze. It's often said that one well-placed blaze is more valuable than 3 that are improperly placed. You should pick out a tree that stands out from the rest of the trees and isn't blocked by brush or other tree stems. Often we find that the best tree to blaze is on the outside curvature of the trail so that it comes into view quicker as you're moving down the trail. You'll also find that you may not want to blaze the same tree for both directions. From one direction, the tree might be very good for coming into view, but from the other direction, it might be very poor. So you'll need to choose a different tree from the opposite direction. Whenever you come to an extremely sharp turn in the trail, in those kinds of situations, you want to use what we call a double blaze. And these blazes are offset in the direction of the turn. What an offset blaze really does is alert the hiker that something is going to change, and it puts them on alert to look for a sharp turn. You should reinforce these offset blazes with a regular blaze that is visible shortly after the turn. If you have to remove blazes or neutralize an old section of trail because you've done a relocation, you need to take the old blazes off, and this can be done by carefully scraping them off without gouging too far into the tree. And another technique is to use is a spray paint that blends with the surrounding tree colors. One particularly good spray paint, I think it's called Sherwin-Williams Yuma Green. And this is kind of a gray-green color that blends into most tree species bark. And don't try to just paint your blaze real crisp and square when you're doing this obliteration. You just kind of want to blend it into the tree, make it rough and an odd shape.
Okay, so just one thing from that video to note is we actually do not recommend that you use an axe to scrape a tree. That is a different practice from ours, but so again, work with your supervisor on how to remove a blaze from the tree. So when you are, going out, just really quickly, your equipment list, if you're painting, you're going to want that paint scraper. You're going to want to bring, either a foam brush or a bristle brush. You will find everybody has a different preference on how they paint. Some folks like to actually bring like a, blanking on the name, like a cutout of the square that they can paint over. Others like to do it by hand. It all depends. And then obviously make sure you bring a plastic bag, because you're not going to want to put a wet brush in your pack, obviously. All right, and then blazing with tags, you're going to need that hammer, your nails, make sure they're like 2 inches long, and then your blazes, and then something to remove nails, because you're not just responsible for putting a blaze in. Every time you walk by your blazes and do your inspections, you're going to want to check, do you need to pull the nails out a little bit, and make sure that that inch of space is there. So just because you've put a tag blaze in and it's not painted, it's just a metal thing that you feel like is good for forever, it's not. You always have to double check it. Okay, so go ahead and just pop into the chat box really quick. Which one of these, is indicating a turn coming up? A, B, C, or D? B, all right, everybody got it, congratulations. All right, and you are taking a right turn here. So as we can see, the top one is offset to the right, and so that is a right turn. So just a quick review of what everything else is. This is your standard confirmation blaze, go straight. This is your turn, so you will, do it to the left if you're turning left. You can think of the start of the trail like an A, beginning of the alphabet, and you can think of the end of the trail like a V for victory, you've finished. Okay, and I'm gonna pass it off to Olivia.
So just to talk about some more, some best practices for putting up your blazes. Blazes should generally be at or near eye level whenever possible, and you always want to make sure to remove any obscuring foliage with your pruners so they will be visible. You want to paint blazes lower if they're to be seen by people who are walking uphill, so they will be at eye level with that person as they're walking up, and higher on the tree to be seen by people who are walking downhill. If you have a turn in your trail, like we saw in the video, of 45 degrees or more, it's important to indicate this with a turn blaze. And it's ideal to place this turn blaze before the turn, but if there's nowhere to place the blaze before the turn, you can place it just after the turn, as long as it's visible to the trail user as they're approaching. And then you always want to place a confirmation blaze a short distance past the turn, so that the trail user knows they have stayed on the trail once they've made that turn. And it's a good practice also to be sure your confirmation blaze is not visible to the trail user before they take the turn. If someone sees the confirmation blaze before they take the turn, they might be tempted to cut the corner, and we are trying to keep trail users on the trail. That is one of our main jobs. So always install blazes with someone else to ensure that you have that second perspective to really get those blaze placements right. As Kendra mentioned, you may have a co-aligned trail section. If that is the case, you always want to place your blazes for both trails on the same tree for consistency's sake. One should always be above the other, and they should always be in the same order. And as a general rule of thumb, the blaze for a long distance trail should always go above the blaze for a local trail. You don't want to overblaze your trail. The trail user standing at or a few paces beyond a blaze should easily see the next blaze ahead, but never more than 2. And you also don't want to underblaze your trail. So you will be more familiar with your trail than will be the first time hiker, and you don't want to assume that other people will know the way at the same time. You want to be sure that blazes are clearly visible on both sides of road crossings and trail junctions, as these could be points of confusion for trail users. And you also want to make sure that trailheads are clearly marked if your section is a trailhead section. And if your trail runs through a field, you want to be sure that your blazes are clearly visible on either end of the field. So you also don't simply want to keep repainting your old blazes. Just like with inspection, you want to take a fresh, objective look at the trail each year and add or subtract blazes as the need arises. And depending on your direction of travel, you will find that your trail looks very different. So when you do blaze your trail, it is a best practice to blaze the entirety of your trail section in one direction. And then once you've finished, or another day, turn around and blaze your trail back in the opposite direction. This will help you to concentrate on the optimal interval and positioning of your blazes. So you may encounter signs such as these on your trail as well. And as a maintainer, it's your responsibility to maintain the existing permanent signs and to remove any unauthorized signs. On the left here, we have a cairn. Cairn is a trail structure used to guide trail users in areas with no trees, such as on ridges or in fields. So generally, you just want to talk to your supervisor if you do want to install a sign or a cairn on your trail. Okay, so at this time, type into your chat box, what do you see as wrong with these blazes? Everything. Wrong size. Not given enough space on the nail. Faded, yep. Tags too close to the tree. Tree growth. Spray paint was used on the left. Looks faded. All right, well, these are all great answers. Yeah, so on the left, we have faded, old, stretched out, sloppy blazes. So these definitely need to be refreshed. And on the right, these blazes were hammered in too far, so the tree began swallowing them up. So once again, it's important to leave space between the tag and your tree. And it's also important to check them and pull them out periodically to maintain that space, like Kendra mentioned.
Okay, so we're going to do just a quick Q&A because we are running a little bit behind here. So are there any questions? Going once. All right. I think it was Jim on Sharon's computer.
Yeah, that's right. Beside a cairn, is there some guidelines on how to put blazes on rocks and boulders?
So it would be the same as for a tree, like you mean like placement. Like if there are no trees around that are good, you're gonna wanna look for one that's within good viewpoint of folks. Obviously a rock's gonna be on the ground, it won't be eye level, but make sure it's very visible, easy to see. Obviously you would be doing this only with painted blazes. You're not going to be nailing a tag into a rock. But again, you're just gonna wanna clean the surface off and you know, use a painted brush.
The reason I ask is because on some of the trails where the blazes are light colored, whether they're white or whether they're some other light color, it's really hard to see on some of our rocks up here and some of our boulders. And I frequently find if I'm going to miss a trail marking somewhere, it's going to be there. And I was wondering if there was any other guidance other than building a cairn.
Yeah, I don't know if Keith, you have anything to add?
So being a maintainer and supervisor on Bearfort Ridge, we run across this a lot because a lot of our trails run along an open ridge. We have built cairns and had them destroyed within the day. And that can be frustrating, to say the least. I generally, when I blaze, I have a metal brush. One's brass, one's stainless steel, and a scraper. And when it comes to the rocks, I'll generally use the stainless on the area of the rock that I want to paint the blaze on, and then paint the blaze on the rock. Downfalls of painting blazes on rocks are, once it snows, they're gone. I generally try to use glacial erratics at the sides of them, because they're up off the ground. So if you get 6-8 inches of snow, they won't be obscured, and you can still see them. But, you know, they're not always conveniently placed.
Okay, thank you.
So that can be tough.
All right, good question. Okay, so no other questions. We're gonna go ahead and move on. All right.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about protecting the trails, and we'll start off with a short video.
When we talk about the trail tread, we're basically talking about the walking surface of the trail. It should basically be kept smooth and free of debris and rocks and other loose things that you could trip over. As an adopter, one of your jobs is to keep an eye on that. Often as hikers use the trail over years and over quite some time, the trail becomes what we call bermed. In other words, on the outside, downhill side of the trail, a little berm develops. When that happens, it channels water down the trail instead of allowing the water to flow across the trail. Therefore, part of your job is to spot these things and either go through and deberm the trail, or at least realize that it's a job that needs to be done, so you should call in your chapter workers and have a trail day to clear up that situation. Another thing to watch for are places where you see water starting to come onto the trail. Maybe when the trail was built, it was real dry and there were no little creeklets or drainages that were coming onto the trail, but as you see it throughout the years, you may find that there's a particular place where water enters the trail. In this case, you should do something to divert that water away from the trail. You know, either put in a swale so the water can drain across, or some other technique to keep the trail dry. A good time to check for these water situations and problems is to go out right after a rain or even during a rain and see what's happening on the ground. You'll see things then that you won't see during a dry period.
All right, so as we saw in the video, trails are subject to overuse, water erosion, deterioration, and widening as hikers choose paths of least resistance. So you're gonna notice these things as a maintainer. And even if you have the skills, the physical ability, and time, you're still advised to consult your supervisor before proceeding with any tread improvements. But it's very important that you're aware of these things, that you keep an eye out for them, and that you report them. So in some cases, we actually decide to move the trail, and there could be quite a few reasons for this. We could move the trail to, if it's being severely eroded or washed away, if it traverses a wet area and you want to move it to higher ground, if there's a safety hazard that can't be rectified and you want to just move the trail around it, or if there's an opportunity for a nearby viewpoint that you want to take advantage of, or sometimes the land manager will request that the trail is rerouted. So these reroutes are going to be situational, but you should keep an eye out. And if you notice that maybe your trail needs a reroute, alert your supervisor so they can approve it. So things like tread rehabilitation and trail reroutes will be done by a trail crew. So your supervisor, again, will just need to be alerted so that they can get the trail crew involved to take care of this. And again, as we saw in the video, our biggest enemy in trail maintenance is water. So drains are points where water can run off of your trail into an adjacent area that's lower than your trail. So as you can see in these photos, when your trail follows the side of a hill, the lower points of your trail will provide natural drainage points for the water to run off. And you want to be sure that these spots are clear of debris to allow water to flow off of the trail. And directing water off of the trail is just, again, super important to prevent erosion of your tread. Here is an example of a specific type of drain called a water bar. So a water bar is a log or could be rocks placed diagonally across a trail to redirect water off of it. Ideally, we don't build trails directly up a slope like this because this is just asking for water to run down them. But a water bar is a feature we can use on a steep trail to redirect water off of it. Trail crews will build these structures, but maintainers are there to clear them. So the water bar itself, the log or the rocks, should be just higher than the tread enough so the water can't ramp over it. So you will want to clear any debris that settles just uphill of the water bar, including any soil buildup. And you'll want to do this on each trip, especially after the leaves have fallen. So it's good to just be aware of this. You may or may not have this kind of drain on your trail. So here are some tools that are designed for tread work. You can use these tools if you do have a lot of drains or water bars on your trail that you are looking to clear. Or you could just use a sturdy stick that you find on your way. No need to invest in these expensive tread tools. But you can go out and spend a day with a trail crew or take a workshop to learn how to safely use these tools. All right, so in the chat box, can anyone spot the problem with this trail? The black arrow is meant to show the direction that you'd be walking in on the trail. Anybody? No stepping stones, poor drainage, leaf buildup. Yeah, these are all great answers. And for the sake of time, this is, yeah, it's an undesirable wet area. So to maintain this, you might remove that log that's blocking the flow of water and causing those leaves to build up there. So removing that blockage might help to prevent the water from pooling up more. But this does look small enough to step over given the direction of the trail. So, you know, it doesn't look like we would need to put a bridge here or anything. All right. So should you discover that your trail is in danger from any incompatible activities such as encroachment, illegal vehicle use, poaching of wood or other resources, or if you notice any unauthorized trails that are leaving your trail, you should notify your supervisor immediately. And if you witness the offenders, such as poachers, in action, never confront them directly, but take down any information you observe, such as a description or their license plate number, and report it to your supervisor in the trail conference immediately. Additionally, you will want to make sure to note this observation in your report, which we'll get into in just a minute. Kendra, you're muted.
Thank you. So I was just saying we'll do a quick Q&A here. And just to give folks an expectation of timing, we are running about 10 to 15 minutes behind. Just so you know that that's where we're at. Any questions? Going once, going twice. All right, great. Well, that speeds us up.
All right, so now we'll just talk about reporting. So in addition to alerting your supervisor promptly about safety hazards, incompatible activities, and blowdowns, we also have our maintainers fill out a standard report form each time they visit their trail. So why are these reports so important and what are they used for? These reports let us know that all trails actually have an active maintainer that's going out and taking care of them. They also enable us to identify which trails have problems and need additional help in the future. The reports help us to fulfill our commitments to land managers who are expecting to hear about the current conditions of the trails on their land. And these reports allow us to accurately report the work that our volunteers are accomplishing. And this data is incredibly important for applying for grants and partnerships, which enable us to secure funding and resources to do more of what you all are doing as trail maintainers. So this isn't exactly a glamorous part of your volunteer commitment, but is very important. So our maintainers complete this report form and return it to their supervisor twice a year, each spring and fall by the specified deadline, which is indicated on the form itself. And these forms are available both on our website, and you can also reach out to your supervisor if you need any of these resources.
And just to address Rob's comment, yes, the PDF is fillable. You do not have to print it out and write into it, although if you want to do that, you can.
We encourage you to bring a journal out with you on the trail. That way you can write down dates, locations, conditions, work done, etc. That way when you sit down to fill out your report later, you'll have all that information ready to write down or to input into your computer. Okay, so again, as a maintainer, you would not be responsible for removing blowdowns greater than 6 inches in diameter, but rather you'll report these to your supervisor immediately, and they will coordinate with one of our certified sawyers to take care of it. So there are important pieces of information you need to provide to your supervisor. The first is the size of the blowdown, so the diameter in inches, the position relative to your trail, so is the tree across your trail, along your trail, or hanging over it, the geographical location, so this could be reported in a few different ways. At the very least, you could report a landmark and the distance of the fallen tree from that landmark. This is the least helpful method because a landmark may be difficult for someone who's not familiar with that area. But more helpful ways to report this would be to take a photo with the GPS setting on your phone turned on so you can record the GPS location. You can also mark it on your paper map and send a photo to your supervisor, or you can use our Avenza app, which I'll get to in just a minute. It is also very important to take a photo of the situation. Photos will describe the situation best for a sawyer to know what tools to bring. And when you take a photo, it is always a best practice to add something into the photo for scale, such as a trekking pole or a water bottle or a backpack. So this is what our Avenza map app looks like. And we will send out more information about how to use this app and how to access it. So before we move on to look at our reporting form, Keith, do you have anything to add about reporting down trees?
No, just taking that picture with the item in it, like an Nalgene bottle or your backpack, just to get a good idea of how we can plan a trip for the sawyer. So then that way they can use their time and hit the trees as efficiently as possible.
Great, thank you. All right, so now to familiarize ourselves with the reporting form itself, we're going to go through a scenario. I will read it now, but no need to memorize it as I will go through the pieces of it as we go through the form. So the date is Sunday, June 21st, and the weather is great, so you decide to visit your trail with a good friend to perform some routine maintenance. You and your friend chat as you hike in, skirting 2 deep, wet, muddy patches and walking around a very large tree that's fallen across the trail. At one point, you stop and go to work with your loppers and handsaws, cutting back some feisty barberry, which is starting to close off the corridor. At another point, you notice a social trail has been created leading away from the sanctioned trail, so you and your friend gather large sticks and duff to cover it up and dissuade people from using it. It took you and your friend 45 minutes to drive from your house to the trailhead. You perform maintenance from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., including your hike to your trail segment, and then it took 15 minutes to fill out the report. So this is what the top of our reporting form looks like. Here you will fill out the reporting period and your contact information and your supervisor and trail information. So to refresh our memory, the date is Sunday, June 21st, and the weather's great, so you go out to maintain. For this report, you would fill out winter and spring for your reporting period. This reporting period takes place from December 1st to June 30th, so June 21st falls into that winter-spring period. Next, you'll fill out your work summary. So this is where you write down the work that you've done this reporting period, and this is also where you give details about any outstanding trail problems that will need attention in the future. So to refresh our memory, you and your friends chat as you hike in, you skirted 2 deep, wet, muddy patches, and you walked around a large tree that's fallen across the trail. So for current trail problems, you would select downed trees and wet areas. And then to refresh our memory again, at one point you stop and go to work with your loppers and your handsaws, cutting back some feisty barberry. At another point, you notice a social trail has been created, leading away from the sanctioned trail. So you and your friends gather large sticks and duff to cover it up and dissuade people from using it. So for this, you would select inspection for your work done. You know, every time you go out, you're inspecting your trail. You clipped that feisty barberry, and you would also select other, and you would describe the details about the unauthorized trails in the additional details box. All right, so this is the part of the reporting form where you're going to report your hours. And as you can see, we provide enough lines for multiple trip dates, so you don't have to fill out an entirely new form every time that you go out. So here you'll input the trip date, the number of workers, so you'll want to include your friend who helped you out, the work hours, so this is the number of hours spent working, including hiking to and from your trail. The travel time, so this is the round trip commute time to and from your home and the trailhead. And then at the bottom, you'll see there's a space for administrative hours. So this is the time spent not on the trail, but rather figuring out logistics, gathering tools, and filling out your report. So we have a quick poll here. So to refresh our memory, it took you and your friends 45 minutes to drive from your house to the trailhead. You performed maintenance from 10 to 3, including your hike to the trail segment. And then it took 15 minutes to fill out the report. So how many worker hours, travel hours, and admin hours should you enter for this trip? We'll give you some time here to answer this.
All right, we'll give about 10 more seconds. Okay, gonna end the poll.
All right, so how many worker hours will you enter? So the correct answer here is actually 10. We had some people select 10, so it's 10 because you're counting 5 work hours for yourself from 10 to 3 and also 5 for your friend. So that's why the answer is 10 there. How many travel hours will you enter? So the correct answer here is 3. So that is because your trip was 45 minutes there and 45 minutes back. So that's 45 minutes, or sorry, an hour and a half for you and an hour and a half also for your friend who traveled with you. So the correct answer there is actually 3. And then how many administrative hours will you enter? The correct answer here is 1/4 of an hour. And it looks like most people selected that. So that's great. Yeah, so that's for those 15 minutes you spent filling out your report.
So remember, because I see someone selected 15, that when you do fill out your form, you're going to put down the minutes in 1/4 of the hour. So 15, if you put that, that would mean you did 15 hours of administrative work, which I really hope the form is not that complicated. So it would actually be the 0.25, 1/4 of an hour. Okay, and I'm actually going to skip this Q&A because we just have like 2 more slides after this, and then we're getting into the overall Q&A. So just hold your questions for that. All right, so just a quick note about educating hikers when you're out there with your clippers, you know, and your handsaw. People are interested. They're going to be curious, and they're going to ask, what are you doing? Make sure that you are a good advocate for the trails. Talk to people and advocate that they get involved too, right? We always need more people to help care for our trails, and let them know what goes into caring for the trails. It's not like some fairy in the forest that magically makes them appear, right? So environmental monitoring or invasive species. An invasive species is a plant that is not native to the area, and it can really overtake an ecosystem, and it's not healthy for the ecosystem. It also tends to be the plants that really seem to grow into the trail and cause a lot of issues for us that we have to cut back. So we do have a dedicated invasive species program if you're interested in getting involved in that. And that team is developing a workshop, invasive species for trail maintainers, and they're looking to release that in June once the plants have actually come out and they can, you know, do better identifying video and photos of it. So keep an eye out for that. And then lastly, you know, if you do get involved, like we said earlier, if there's an injury or anything like that, you are covered by either workers' comp of the park that you work on, or you're covered by Trail Conference insurance. That is if you are injured when you're volunteering, not just out on a hike having fun. And when you become a maintainer, we do send you a link to a page where you get all of the resources that we've been talking about, and it has the injury protocol there, but you just have to fill out a form when you're injured, you know, and go through a process with us to make sure that you're covered by insurance. That said, if it is a severe injury, call 911 or go to the doctor first. Don't worry about getting the paperwork done first. Remember, always put care first. So with that, we encourage everybody to become a trail maintainer and join the fun. And if there are any questions at this point, we will go ahead and take them. And then also, I guess, Keith, is there anything else you wanted to add before we kick off the Q&A that we missed?
The PDF will automatically calculate your crazy hour time thing, so it's not something to worry about too much. And I guess that's about it.
Yes, the reporting form does, as long as you put the main numbers in correctly, it does auto-calculate the totals for you. All right, any other questions? I don't see any raised hands. I'll check the chat box as well. So next steps is we will be sending out a follow-up email. If it's not this afternoon, it will be first thing Monday, because we have to wait for Zoom to get us the recording, and we send out the recording as well as links to all the other resources. And then we ask if you want to become a maintainer. And if you do want to become a maintainer, to make up for the half of the class that is hands-on doing this digitally, we are going to have folks fill out a survey that just checks that you kind of understand what you learned here in the class today. Don't worry if you don't get it all right. It doesn't mean you can't become a maintainer. It just helps us see what we need to teach better and make sure that you know everything that you need to be a successful volunteer. So those will be next steps. Are there any other questions? And if not, I'm just gonna go ahead and share a poll here as you're leaving. If you just wanna go ahead and rate this, it helps us. Again, this has been new to us to offer this digitally, so we're learning as we go. So any feedback you have is helpful. And we'll also have a question in the survey where you can provide feedback as well. So thank you all so much for joining. We really, really appreciate it. And we hope to see you out on the trails soon. Thank you all. Oh, thank Joe. Awesome. All right, folks. Gonna go ahead and close down here. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
You too.
Bye. Oh wait, how do I close this? Close. Doesn't want to close.